let's go back to 1987. Your interactions with Heyman and Long begin. You have the arrest on the drug charge. What was the relationship between you and the guys you hung out with and District 3, the St. Louis
We was just
Department?
hustlers. We was just hustlers in the environment where we come from. That's all. We was just call ourselves being guys that people respect. Mm-hmm. And we was just hustlers, drug dealers, and doing the things that normally guys who don't have anything to really contribute to society at that time. Just being honest, And we were just hustlers, and just doing what we do, selling narcotics and whatnot in the neighborhood where we was at.
Do you feel like it was like this cat and mouse game between you and the cops because they had known some of the stuff that you guys were involved with, and sometimes they would pull you over or shake you down, and this kind of fight to not get caught? Like what are some of the things that happened that kind of explain that you told me before?
Well, majority of the things that we were doing, I'm saying we were selling drugs in the community. We didn't know no better, because if we knew better, we would have did better. We were selling drugs in the community, and we was, what you call a nuisance in the community. You know what I'm saying? And I guess the cops just didn't understand what it was that we was going through, by us selling drugs in the community. As a direct result of that, you become recognized by the police officers in the community after you get arrested once or twice, and then they just come after you.
Mm-hmm. And what, in your life leading up to that point, what do you think made it attractive to that lifestyle? What made that attractive?
Me personally, I've always liked money, and I wasn't provided with the ability to have the money that I figured that I was entitled to. So, that's why I turned to selling drugs, and as a direct result of that, I like to dress. I like to put on different clothes, every day. I like the women. At that time, I was a ladies' man growing up.
And then, so you get arrested by Heyman and Long in '87 on the drug possession charge. Take me through that incident. What happened?
Well, I got arrested by Heyman and Long on the drug possession charge. After I got out of the car, I was riding in the car with two other individuals. I get out of the car and I walk up to my door, open my door, and go in my house. Once I get in the house, I heard a doorbell ring, which was my doorbell. I heard the doorbell ring, and the guy said, "Come down and open the door." And I go down and open the door for the officer down at the door. I was like, "What's up?" He said, "Turn around." He pulled his gun out. He said, "Turn around and put your hands up." I threw my hands up. I said, "Yeah, what's up, man?" He said, "You under arrest." I said, "Under arrest for what?" He said, "You ran from me." I said, "I didn't run from you." I said, "I didn't even see you. Why would I run from you?" He said, "You ran from me." I said, "Why would I run from you? If I saw you, I would have stopped." And, he put the handcuffs on me and he locked me up and took me down to the police station. He locked the other guy that was driving the car. They locked him up because he didn't have a driver's license.
So they put a drug possession charge on you.
Yes.
And then you ended up getting out on bond and then getting arrested again by Heyman and Long later that month, right?
Yes, later that month.
And that arrest, what was that arrest?
That arrest was for assault. He said I was wanted for assault. Went down to the police station and made the assault out against my girlfriend at that time. Her name was Siobhan Johnson. I didn't assault Siobhan Johnson. We were together on our way in the house at, I think it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, that morning. We were on our way in the house. We come down from hanging out with our associates down on the lower part of South Side, and on the way in, he told me I had a warrant out for my arrest.
Mm-hmm. And then how did they arrest you? Because you ended up filing an internal affairs complaint based off that arrest, right? So what did they do to you?
They took me down to the police station and started asking me questions on the way to the police station after they handcuffed me and took me down to the police station. Once we get in the car and turn on the highway to go down 44, one of those highways over there, behind my house, he asked me some questions about a couple of guys that's in the Moorish Science Temple of America with me. And I told him, I said, I'm not going to tell you give you no answers that you want me to give you pertaining to nobody. I said, you got some questions for them. You might as well go ask them questions yourself, because I ain't going to tell you. So he got mad at me. Long got mad at me and reached around the seat and hit me with a little flapjack, little stick like with a
like a nightstick or something like that.
It ain't a nightstick. It's they call it a flapjack,
okay.
about this big, and it's kind of heavy. It got a little hook on it. And he turned around and he hit me with it. He called me a smart ass. I said, man, I'm not being smart, man. I said, what the hell you hit me for?
So were they trying to get you to be an informant on these guys in the Moorish Science Temple?
That's what it alluded to, because after he hit me, he said, all of you MFs, he talked kind of bad to me. And at that time, I had a trickle of blood running down the side of my face because he had cracked my glasses and hit me right here on the side of my eyelid where it started bleeding. Mm-hmm. And he talked about us, and I kept telling him what my name was. I told him my name is Sheikh Fredrico Lowe-Bey. And he was like, yeah, all of you guys around here, you ain't nothing but a bunch of gangsters, and this is what y'all do. I said, man, look, you ain't have to hit me like that, And as a direct result of that, he was trying to get information out of me about the head of the organization, which was Sheikh Jerry Lowe-Bey. And I told him, I said, man, you got something you want to ask Jerry Lowe-Bey? You need to go ask Jerry Lowe-Bey that. Don't ask me that, because I ain't going to tell you.
And then, so whenever you filed the complaint, they took pictures of you as part of the process. How badly bruised or bloodied would you say you were?
Well, after he hit me, they pulled over on the highway on the way down to the police station. They pulled over on the highway and got out of the car and came to the back of the car, and they beat me up. They was hitting me. Both of them was hitting me from each side of the car. One was on the other side, the other one was on the other side. And they was hitting me, poking me with the flash. They had a long flashlight. And they was poking me with the flashlight, and the other one was just hitting me across my leg. I had bruises on my leg, on my wrist, and on one of my fingers was jammed and whatnot, and they was just hitting me, and I was trying to protect myself. You handcuffed, you in the back of the seat, back seat of the police car. You can't do nothing but, try to curve up or cuddle up, like, where, go into a fetal position, so they wouldn't hurt you, and they stopped beating me up. And got back in the car. We drove on down to the police station. We get in the garage. I was smart-mouthing them then, because I told them once they take the handcuffs off me, I was gonna beat them down. I said I got enough, skills to whoop both of y'all at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I was blowing on them and talking real rash to them, and that's when they started beating me up again.
Yeah, and so you said your attorney had suggested that you filed the internal affairs complaint.
Yes.
Did you think it was going to go anywhere?
No, I didn't think it was going to go anywhere, because that's what they do down in the St. Louis Police Department. Anytime you make a complaint down in St. Louis, it never goes anywhere, And so I got out that morning, and my attorney, Doris Gregory Black, she told me to go directly to the hospital, and I told her I would be going to regional hospital. I went to regional hospital that morning, and after they released me, and got checked out in the hospital, which Rick, my attorney Rick, he has the medical files that I provided him with. Mm-hmm. And I reported it. The 2 days later, I made a complaint with the internal affairs.
Mm-hmm. And then, so you go to trial for the drug charge in
Yes.
April of 1988, and Heyman and Long both testified.
Yes.
What did they testify to you having drugs?
They testified that when I jumped out of the car and ran in the house, I looked at them, threw the drugs on the ground, and ran in the house and locked the door from the other side with a key. Ran up to my apartment and locked the door. But I come back down to the door after he rang the doorbell, because I didn't do anything. Why would I come back down if I ran from you? That don't make sense, does it? So I came back down, and that's when he pulled his gun out and told me to get my hands up, put the handcuffs on me, and lock me up. I never knew I was charged with drug charges until that next morning when I was in pretrial release. They said, you have drug charge. I said, what kind of drug charge? And it was like, you've been charged with possession of controlled substance, dangerous drugs, and marijuana.
Mm-hmm. And then, so you get acquitted of the drug charge in April of '88. And were the officers there on the day that you got acquitted in the courtroom?
Yes, they were.
So describe that day to me. You get acquitted, and then there's an exchange you have. What happened?
The jury came in. The jury came back with not guilty verdicts on the charges. And as I'm sitting there with my attorney, Officer Heyman and Officer Long was standing on one side, and Heyman was standing on the other side with the assistant circuit attorney. And he looked at me after the foreman of the jury that came up and acquitted me of the drug charges, shook my hand and told me I better watch myself because those guys was out to get me. So after the foreman left, Heyman and Long, they were still there with the assistant circuit attorney down there. And as a direct result of that, Heyman blurted out, he said, you ain't gonna walk the streets or something. I say, fuck you. That's just what I said. I said, fuck you.
Was anybody else around to hear that comment
Well,
that he said to you?
my attorney heard it, and he told me just sit tight. I said, man, you heard what he said. I ain't gonna walk the street. I ain't gonna walk the street this summer. He said, sit tight. He kept patting me on my arm, on my hand, and told me to sit tight.
And he used the N-word when he said it.
Yeah, he said, you ain't gonna walk the street this summer. And I told him, I said, F you.
Did you take him for his word at the time when he said that?
I did not take him for his word. I did not take him for his word because at that time, they had been doing so much stuff in our neighborhood, locking so many people up. I did not take him for his word, But I was planning on leaving the city of St. Louis anyway.
And you think in hindsight maybe that was, I don't know, foolish of you, or you were a young kid and you thought, you brushed it aside, or do you feel like maybe you could have taken that more seriously in a sense, or?
I should have taken it more serious than what I did, because he straight came after me. He came after me a couple of times.
And you said your attorney Doris Black had suggested to you to just stay off the streets when Heyman and Long are patrolling on the night shift, and you said you took that to heart.
I took it to heart because I started following that pattern because I did have a job at the time. I worked at Royal Bond Chemical Company down on North 9th Street. We make everything for funeral homes, embalming machines and everything. And so I took it to heart, and me and Siobhan, we made alliances that, we're gonna leave St. Louis. We're gonna go to California, be with my family up in California.
And you had made that decision like after the drug charge, or was that a plan before?
Right after the drug charge, I said, we gotta get out of here, because they're coming after me.
And so, so April 1988, you get acquitted, and then in May, you get arrested for the rape and sodomy of. So, whenever they come to arrest you, you're at your guys' place. It's like midnight. It's late. Take me through that scene.
Well, they come knocking on the door about, I think it was 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. They come knocking on the door, saying that they had an arrest warrant for my arrest. And Siobhan went to answer the door, and when she answered the door, she told them that I was there, and I was putting my clothes on. And I would come down the steps as soon as I got my clothes on. I had my jeans on, I just had to put a shirt on and some shoes on. And when she went down, I said, open the door, let them in, see what they want. And when she opened the door, they just rushed right on up the steps, and came and had the guns drawn and told me to lay across the bed. At that time, I had my daughter in my hand, and he told me to put the baby down. And I set my daughter down on the bed, and he told me to lay across the bed, put my hands behind my back. I laid across the bed, put my hands behind my back, and he put the handcuffs on me and brought me down the steps. When he brought me down the steps, Siobhan kept asking him, say, man, what are you locking him up for? What did he do? Say, you know what he did, but she didn't know what I did.
Were you asking them, like when they were arresting you, like, what are you arresting
me
for?
but they didn't, I asked them, I said, what's up, man? What y'all locking me up for? He's like, well, we got you now. You're going to prison now. And I was like, what you got me for? You know, I had my hands still handcuffed behind my back. And at that time, my mother come running down the street. And she was asking, what you locking my baby up for?
She lived right down.
She
just
lived
like a
about
couple houses down.
about 6, 7 doors up the street from where I was living. Mm-hmm. And she asked me, what you locking my baby up for? And they told her, your son is a rapist. She said, my son ain't no rapist. My son ain't got to rape nobody. My son got so many girlfriends, I can't even name them. She said, my son ain't raped nobody. And Siobhan told him, he ain't raped nobody. But they didn't give us no descriptions about where it happened, when it happened, and none of that until after I got arrested and taken down to the police station.
And so they say, we're arresting your son for rape, and then what's your reaction to that?
I said, man, I ain't never got to rape nobody. Not as many women as I got, man. I got so many women, man, it's pitiful. You know? Everywhere I went, the cars that I drove, the things that I did, you know, I was a flamboyant guy when I was out there. I ain't never had to rape nobody. I had women coming to me from everywhere, every which way but loose.
Mm-hmm. And so whenever they're taking you out and your mom was there, do you remember, because your mom had also got arrested in that and then released the next day, but
right.
Why, what happened there that she got arrested?
They say she tried to stop them from arresting me. But my mother never stopped them from arresting me. My mother kept telling them, say, my baby didn't rape nobody. So they tried to push my mother away. She said, if you going to take him to jail, I'm going to ride down there with him. And they pushed my mother down. Then they turned around and put the handcuffs on and locked her up. She had a nightgown on and a trench coat.
Mm. And did they say anything to her whenever they were?
They just took both of us up. She rode down to the police station with me. Mm-hmm. You know, and they just locked her up and gave her a charge of interfering with a cop.
Yeah.
Interfering with an
and then
officer.
I think they ended up just releasing
She
her.
made bond first, and then my aunt came and made her bond, and then they ended up dropping the charges on her.
Yeah. And what was that like? You know, seeing, I mean, you're obviously getting arrested for a very serious crime.
It was hurting, man. If I'd have been not in restraints, you know, I probably would have swung on the guy the way he pushed my mother down. You know, I really would have. At that time, you know, you got to use your head for more than that right now, you know. But at that time, I probably would have swung on him, pushed my mother down like that.
And so once you're in jail on those charges, they have a lineup and then, you know, picks you out of the lineup. And did the cops did they do an interview with you, ask you any questions about the night that it happened?
Nothing.
They didn't ask you any questions?
Nothing.
They just said, we're charging you with rape and sodomy, and then...
You charged with rape and sodomy of the victim. They never did tell me her name until I got the police reports and learned the name of the police reports.
And when you saw the name,
it didn't jog it. It didn't ring no bell to me. You know, I just didn't know. I didn't know the individual who they say I was supposed to have raped. And when the morning the trial started, they had already picked the jury. So I leaned over to my lawyer and I asked my lawyer. I said, "Hey man, who was that?" He said, "That's the victim." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, that's the victim." I said, "I don't know her."
You had never seen her before?
Never seen her. She said she knew me.
The strategy from your defense. So Andrew Hernandez, public defender, was representing you.
Right.
And on that note, why didn't you said Doris Black was your attorney at the time? Why didn't she represent you in the 288
I didn't have enough money to finish paying her off, and so I had to finish my trial with Hernandez at the time.
And so before the trial, you know, take me through those conversations with Hernandez. What were you thinking on, like, how am I gonna defend myself against this?
Well, I first explained to Andy. I said, Andy, we have to get a copy of those medical reports, because if we look at those medical reports, we might find something in there that we need. As a direct result, Andy pulled out the medical reports and gave them to me. The medical reports that he gave me, they was illegible. We couldn't see anything on them.
And you're saying the whole thing was illegible?
The entire report was illegible. Could nobody see it?
And so the prosecution entered that into evidence at trial, but at any point throughout the trial, did you see any medical report that was legible?
Not during my trial. I never seen any medical reports that was legible for us to read, because I was forced, after Andy came to the city jail to talk to me, I was forced to write her, the prosecutor's supervisor, which was George Peach. And she told me, she said she told Andy, and Andy told me, that she said that all of the medical reports are the same. And I say, Andy, but we can't discover anything on her according to the Missouri rules of civil procedure, criminal procedure. I said, we're entitled to discovery. I can't see none of this stuff on her. And so when we kept going back and forth over the medical reports, he said, well, she said this is all she got. And I was like, man.
And he just kind of accepted that?
Yeah, and it seemed like, man, something wrong with this picture, man. If we can't see none of this evidence, how are we going to discover this? So she said, if you don't like it, you can write our boss. So I wrote our boss, George Peach. I wrote him a letter. Mm-hmm. I got the letter notarized. And I explained to him that Marianne L. Medler, who was the prosecutor, assistant circuit attorney at that time, she gave us illegible documents. And we could not see any of the evidence on the documents by which, we can use to discover anything. And as a direct result, we need some discovery. So he never responded back to any of my letters.
And so his strategy, pretty much, it seemed like, was go after the cops' credibility because of the past history with you guys, and suggest that the victim was lying about the fact that the rape even happened. And right. I mean, comes down to it, the jury believed her. In the trial, do you think you were able to prove then that these cops really had it out for you?
In the trial, we was able to speak very little about the evidence of what these cops did. It was the cops that was behind this as well, because if my victim said that in the testimony which I provided to you, if my victim said that she didn't identify me until after she saw the picture, the police officers say, Heyman alone say, that she called and gave my name as the suspect who raped her. She said 3 unknown males, black males, raped her. 2 of them held her down while I was supposed to have been the one that raped her. And as a direct result of that, they said, I'm the one that did it, because she able to say that it was Fredrico. But when they took the photograph to her house, doing my motion to suppress evidence, which would be the in-court identification, doing the motion to suppress, they asked her questions about how she identified me. She said, they asked, my lawyer asked, well, didn't you identify Fredrico as the person who raped you? She said, I didn't say of him. I said of the person who raped me. He said, but you did say Fredrico was the person that raped you, did you not? She said, yes, I did, after I saw the picture. So when you go to Officer Long's testimony, they asked him, they said, well, what did you do after you took the photograph of Fredrico to see if she can identify him? He said, well, when she identified who he was, that's when we told her his name.
That you were the suspect.
That I'm Fredrico. I'm the suspect. I'm Fredrico. I'm like, well, how can she actually say that I am the suspect? She keeps saying Fredrico. And she says Fredrico over and over and over again. And then she said she remembered Fredrico because Fredrico got a bunch of freckles all over his face. I don't have no freckles on my face. So that ain't Fredrico. You only naming Fredrico by name. You ain't not naming Fredrico by identification.
And in Long's testimony, the pretrial testimony, do you remember the way Hernandez asked him, how did she describe the person who did it? Do you remember what he said there?
I believe he asked Heyman how did he come up with that identification, and I believe he said that she called him that night while he was out of service. She called him that night and gave him my name in a conversation about getting her money back. She's supposed to have left a wallet with some money in it at the scene of the crime and whatever, you know, and you know, he said that he presented the picture to her, and that's how he came up with it was me who did it.
Mm. And in the pretrial testimony, Long said a light-skinned man with freckles.
Light-skinned man with freckles.
But then during the trial, Hernandez never cross-examined Long about that identification that he said just before the trial. And he kind of hinted at it with a conversation that your girlfriend had at the circuit attorney's office with the victim. But he never brought it up to the officer who had said that right before the trial.
Right.
And so the jury basically never really heard that discrepancy there. And she'd also deny it. There was a whole thing with the freckles and the gold tooth.
Right.
And the gold tooth is what they hammered on at trial.
Right.
And obviously back in the day you had
I had two goals in my mouth.
Oh yeah, so you had two. So that was, would you say that was your most prominent feature back then probably?
It probably was.
Yeah. And that's what, in the initial police report, in the narrative, it doesn't mention a gold tooth.
Don't mention anything about gold teeth.
But that's what they kept saying at trial. So, I guess during trial, when they were describing you, and he had said the freckles, were you like, okay, you know, that's not me. So you know, they're not gonna believe him. Like, what was going through your mind on that?
Yeah, I was like, man, yeah, you know, I don't have freckles on my face, so you know, believe maybe the jury will pay close attention to what they saying about this guy with these freckles, you know. But being that she kept saying Fredrico is a prominent name over on the South Side. Well, it was, you know, because everybody knew me, you know, and you know, that it just stood out. But I didn't have freckles at the time, you know, and just like it was with my name, you know, everybody keeps saying, yeah, she got the right person, but you know, it ain't Fredrico. Because later on down the line, they asked her, well, how do you remember Fredrico? She said, oh, I remember him because he got freckles all over his face. I remember that. I remember him, but it's not me. So it's somebody she got in her mind that is Fredrico, but it's, you know, she by name that is Fredrico, but by physical identification, it's not Fredrico.
And the jury at the rape trial, do you remember anything about like the makeup of the jury, who was on it?
I had half and half jury, I believe. You know, I had about 4 to 6, yeah, about half and half white and half black.
Mm. Is that something that you felt like was important in that trial?
Really, I really didn't. You know, I was going on the concepts of the evidence that was presented. You know, because like I said, the evidence was obtained from a guy named Joe Crow. Mm-hmm. Joe Crow was the criminologist, St. Louis Police Department criminologist. And Joe Crow was the one that got the evidence before he turned it over to the circuit attorney's office. So Joe Crow had to go through all the evidence in order to make a determination whether or not there was sufficient evidence to identify anybody, because he didn't know no names or nothing. So by him identifying that it was some sperm actually found there, he chose not to test the sperm because he said he felt that it would have got a false positive. Mind you, by him being the criminologist, he had the medical report as well. Mm-hmm. And the medical report said the victim had not had sex for 2 weeks prior to the rape happening. And she did not clean herself after the rape happened. Therefore, the sperm that they found in the victim, it had to belong to the rapist. But this never came out because we was never given the medical report to actually offset the theory that the state presented during my trial. Mm-hmm.
And Hernandez actually kind of tried to push the theory that at the time, because they couldn't test the DNA, that it did come from a prior act, and that based on that was evidence that it wasn't you because it couldn't have belonged to you because it came from a prior act.
Without a doubt.
But the medical report never came up at trial. Not even the prosecution hinted at it. And Joe Crow, even when he was cross-examined by Hernandez, even kind of said, well, it's not a definite thing that it came from a prior act. It's still possible that it could have been from the assailant. And the prosecution kind of, came back and said, well, it's probably the boyfriend, Bo. We don't know. We'll never know. Kind of that, right. Leaving it up in the air.
Right.
And so, with the fact that the medical report wasn't at trial, we'll fast forward to 2001, with the Supreme Court rule, you petitioned for DNA testing, and at that point, were you thinking that, okay, if it comes back and it's not me, like I'm good, like I'm going to be exonerated? Was that kind of your mindset?
Yeah, that was my mindset. That was the exact mindset, because guys that I was surrounded with in the prison system at that time, I was in Pacific, and I did my research on DNA, and as I did my research on DNA, I contacted Centurion Ministries, because I had contacted them 4 times prior to it, and they kept telling me that they didn't have sufficient funds to assist me with. And so I said, well, okay, I'll do this myself then, And so I filed a petition and sent it into the court. And the court got back with me and told me that they was granting my petition to have the DNA tested. Mm-hmm. And so I contacted Centurion, and I spoke with James McCloskey. And I told Jim, I said, hey, Jim, I need some help. He said, what do you mean you need some help? I said, Jim, I need some help. I got some action. He said, what do you mean you got action? I said, I got action. The DNA we found, the sperm that they found, the judge's gonna give me a hearing. He was like, wow, are you serious? He said, what you got to show that? To show to me that, prove to me that, this is gonna take place. I said, I got the paperwork. You want the paperwork? I'll send the paperwork to you. At that time, I had a firm down there named Miss Puff. I had Miss Puff fax the paperwork to him, because she had just gave it to me. And he sent it to me. He said, how did you do this? I said, man, hey, I go to the University of Missouri, man. You know what I'm saying? This is where you have to study at, man.
The University of the Department of Corrections.
Yeah, no, the University of Missouri.
Oh, really? You were actually going?
No, this is University of Missouri, not the Department of Corrections. This is the University of Missouri. See, because when you put your head together on the issues that you have to be focused on, this is called a university, and this is the library. You know what I'm saying? You can't separate the physical library from the non-physical library. This becomes a library all throughout the time that you're here. And so this is what I did. I focused in on that. And so Jim was like, hey, we're going to come to your aid, and they came to my assistance, and they got a lab, Rely Gene Lab down in Louisiana. First, before we got the lab, he contacted one of the guys that he knew from Connecticut. He was a criminologist. And we brought him in, and he testified, hey, man, I can go on that evidence that they came up with, and we can draw out whatever we need to draw out to clear Fredrico, And so we was able to get that done, and the results came back. When the results came back, it wasn't me.
And then, what do you think? This is my ticket right here?
I thought it was my ticket.
How sure were you at the time that you were going to get out of prison at that point?
I was absolutely sure. I said, man, I'm out of here. I said, I'm out of here. I don't care what nobody say. I'm out of here. That DNA don't match me. And this is what was going on with the DNA situation at that time. And by the DNA not matching, then the circuit attorney's office, they screened file. Say, hey, that belonged to the victim's boyfriend. We had to go find it. Just so happened was in the courtroom right next to us, where we was with the DNA. He was in the courtroom right next to us, getting arraigned for a drug charge. And as a direct result, they asked him, did he mind giving swab so we can run the DNA and match it up with him. He said he didn't mind. So they contacted him, kept him there for a minute, contacted the Metropolitan Police Department. They came over, swabbed him up, sent it off to the lab, and came back. Didn't match him. The judge told the prosecutors that she needed him to bring the victim in to testify as to why the DNA don't match her boyfriend, who she was with right before the rape happened. Just 5 to 10 minutes before the rape happened, you know? And as a direct result, when she came to court, they had to go look for her. She went missing in action for a minute, and they had to go look for her. And when she came to court, she gave testimony that she had sex with a dead guy named Fred Knox. Fred Knox was...
At that point, he had been dead for some years.
Yeah, but that was my partner. That was my associate.
Oh, really?
Fred was my associate. And so she said she had sex with Fred Knox. He never told me nothing about her. You know what I'm saying? That he was messing with her or anything, you know, because we was like this. You know, we boxed together. We both fought out of 12th and Park together. You know, and he never told me anything that anything about her, you know, but, you know, I wouldn't have knew no way, but, you know, he never said nothing. And so when the judge asked her, why did the DNA not match him? She was like, I don't know, I had sex with somebody else. But all the time, you keep in mind, if she had sex with Fred Knox, she had sex with her boyfriend. If she had sex with anybody else, that couldn't possibly be true because they had that medical report that they suppressed. And everybody is running from. The medical report says she hadn't had sex for 2 weeks prior to the rape happening. So she couldn't have had sex with Fred Knox. She couldn't have had sex with the other 2 dudes that she never named, who she say, after she testified that she had sex with Fred Knox, or she couldn't have never had sex with her boyfriend. Because none of their DNAs match up. But keeping in mind that the DNA came back not to match anyone, that was an indication that something was going on. Either she was lying or she wasn't, I don't understand this. Either she was lying about being raped or the actual rapist is actually still out there. Because the state, according to Statute 650, is supposed to put that evidence in that FBI computer and run that evidence through the computer. They never did that. They just left, okay, she got Fredrico in jail, so it's okay for him to be in jail. You know what I'm saying? That's a death sentence. 85 years for a rape I didn't commit? Man, I ain't supposed to be here.
And so when the victim came and testified for the second DNA hearing, and she had requested that they remove you from the courtroom, and I think it was just the attorneys and her. And the judge asked, and Jim McCloskey, and the judge asked her, now, do you remember, you know, what the guy looked like? And mind you, you were in the courtroom probably 2 minutes before that. And she had said, yeah, he was light-skinned and had freckles. And they were scary freckles, and I hated that.
Yes.
But you weren't there. You were there a couple minutes before, you know, but you weren't there to actually hear her say that.
Right.
But the judge could see that you don't have freckles.
Right.
The state can see that you don't have freckles on your face.
Right.
And so I guess, you know, did Jim or Scott Thompson after that tell you what she said about that, or how did you find out that that's how she described you at that hearing?
Well, I got the actual transcript from it, and I said, Jim, I don't have freckles. He said, yeah, I know that they was debating that at the trial about the freckles. I said, man, I ain't got no freckles. How come didn't nobody bring that out to the judge? But the judge knew I didn't have freckles, you know? And so the judge was like, well, okay. She said she recognized him from the neighborhood. It's okay to recognize somebody from the neighborhood, but if you don't have the identification properly, where you can say, yeah, that's him because he looked like this here. That ain't how that go. And they just left me in prison.
The DNA law that allowed for you to get the testing as a post-conviction remedy, my understanding was that it doesn't allow a defendant to attack the credibility of a witness after the fact, and I guess the identification there is part of that. And so it seemed like Judge Joan Berger was just ruling on the physical evidence, but at the same time, she did say that she thought that she believed the witness, the victim, that she found her to be credible.
Right.
And that's why she'd end up ruling that.
She found her to be credible because she did not know the medical report existed that said she hadn't had rape. I mean, she hadn't had sex for 2 weeks prior to the rape and didn't clean herself. Had she known that, she couldn't have never made that ruling. Am I right?
And once the legible report was unearthed by Jim McCloskey at the prosecutor's office, that was 2014 at that point. That was 7 years after the DNA decision.
Right.
And at that point, Judge Berger was, I think, a few years already retired.
Right.
So the case couldn't come back to her in that sense, but it just kind of the football got kicked down the line, I guess.
Right.
And I actually spoke with her, and she agreed to review the DNA proceedings, and I sent her all of it. And when I got back in touch with her, she told me that the record is clear and that her decision in 2007 was the correct one, that she stood by it.
It was correct. It was correct for her until the DNA results match up with the medical report. It was clear until. Do you not agree? Because if she hadn't had sex for 2 weeks prior to the rape happening and hadn't cleaned herself, Judge Berger couldn't never made that decision and say she believed what she said.
She wouldn't comment on that. What she told me was that she's retired and that it would be inappropriate for her to speak on something that's not pending before her, and for that reason, that she would not comment on the medical report that came after the fact.
But it was the St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office that made sure that I did not get out because they had it in for me. It was the St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office. This is not strange that the St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office does this thing. They do this on majority of the cases that they have down there. With Joe Crow, I sent you the evidence on Joe Crow. Joe Crow is the link to a majority of everybody during the time. If you've noticed that in the information that I sent you about George Allen, Joe Crow changed the man's DNA and put his DNA in to include George Allen's identification of DNA in there, just so George Allen can be convicted. What prosecutor does that? What prosecutor that actually, George Peach, the most corrupt prosecutor that they had down in St. Louis Circuit, he got put out of that office. He was the head prosecutor. The reason why he didn't take any action in my sending him those letters down there is because for the fact that he was committing crimes himself. He got put out of the St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office for stealing money out of the petty cash fund of the St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office, and he was buying sex from undercover officers who busted him and which got him thrown out of that office down there. When George Peach used Larry Johnson's name as the individual who raped a St. Louis University law student, George Peach used that man's name and sent that man to prison with a life sentence.
And he was wrongfully convicted.
And he was wrongfully convicted and got exonerated after. But Jennifer Joyce, she put up a front and shielded him from getting out until Barry Scheck exposed her. It's sad that St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office is doing this, sir.
So you think this portion of the medical report that cast doubt on the victim's testimony was suppressed for 25 years?
It was suppressed. It was suppressed. It was suppressed. It cast doubt on everything now, because if you look at the situation now, would they take that DNA if I raped somebody 25 years ago and they never recovered the individual who was involved in that? They take that evidence and put it in the CODIS and they come back to match Fredrico Lowe-Bey. Do you think they're gonna not prosecute me for that DNA being found? They're gonna prosecute me. Cold cases are solved. Cold cases have been solved through DNA. Here, this medical report say that the victim hadn't had sex for 2 weeks prior to the rape happening. Nobody knew about this, Matt. Nobody. And everybody is dodging the bullet. He throwing shots. Nobody wants to talk about the DNA evidence. Nobody wants to talk about who the DNA evidence belongs to. They don't even know who the DNA evidence belong to, Matt.
Think that'll ever come to light?
It can because if push come to a shove, we have Gabe Gore down there. It seems like that he's trying to uphold the rights to the St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office as being a prestigious whatever, when in actuality he got me doing time, man. I'm gonna die in prison, man, if I don't get out of here. I'm gonna die in here. I got 85 years. 85 years for a rape I didn't commit. And the state of Missouri, the St. Louis Circuit Attorney, they hid that medical report on purpose. That's why Mary Ann Mellor told the judge during my trial, all she needs is one witness. Nobody knew about telling the medical doctor right after she got raped. This happened directly after she got raped. She was examined by this doctor. And they made it their business not to let this get disclosed.
So you believe that Joe Crow, that Mary Ann Mellor, the prosecutor, that Ed Pistacco, who was representing the state for the DNA case, that all of those people, Heyman and Long included, had seen that, or how do you explain that? Do you think it's suppression or incompetence in some form?
It's incompetence and suppression. Heyman and Long, they excluded from that. The prosecutor, according to Brady versus Maryland, the prosecutor got a duty, an obligation to turn over favorable evidence for me to be able to discover whatever it is I need to discover. They had a duty and obligation to get it to us. They screened that and gave us illegible documents. Why would State's Exhibit 20B be clear and the documents that you give me to defend myself against are illegible? How?
Do you think that Andrew Hernandez, your public defender in '88, represented you adequately?
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. He didn't. Because he probably didn't know. He took Mary Ann Mellor's excuses that the medical report wasn't. In fact, I think I brought that medical report with me.
So is that the legible or illegible?
If this is the document that you give me to defend against, I'm losing every trip. This is the illegible document that they give me. This is the legible document. There is no way in the world I can discover anything on her. And St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office got to know this. They got to know this, Matt. This violated discovery. This violates discovery. Right here, this is where it's at.
In the corner.
No cleaning afterwards. Last intercourse, 2 weeks PTA. This is the illegible document that they forced us to go to trial with. They forced us to go to the DNA hearing with. And as far as Judge Berger saying she don't want to comment, I imagine you don't want to comment because you don't want to upset the establishment down in the 22nd Judicial Circuit who sent black people to prison, based off of that circuit attorney's office down there. It's sad, man. It is really sad. The St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office knew that. Now they're saying that they're reviewing his evidence. You leave me in prison, my children had to grow up without me. My mother died. My father died. 3 of my brothers died. My whole family, the only people I got left is my cousins and my siblings. I don't have anybody else left. You know what I'm saying? And it's sad, man, that the St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office, they're going to continue to do this and get away with it. Now, this is the clear copy of the medical report. Right. This is State's Exhibit 20B.
So, and the clear copy is what they actually entered into evidence.
They entered in the evidence, right.
But you never saw it.
We never seen this. We never seen this. Have we seen this here? Judge Berger couldn't have made that ruling that she made. She couldn't have never made that ruling.
Do you differentiate the current circuit attorney's office from 37 years ago? Do you think there is a difference?
I don't know. I don't know. We have to stop this. We have to stop this. We have to stop this. We dealing with a situation, man. It's a draconian system that nobody want to pay attention to what's going on down in St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office. Barry Scheck called Jennifer Joyce the worst prosecutor he ever saw when Larry Johnson had to get released out of prison. He said she hid everything that she can hide to keep that man locked up, and then turn around and say he was wrongfully convicted. Now here you got me. I'm sitting in prison. I'm the only person in the Missouri Department of Corrections that been cleared by DNA evidence. I'm the only person that been cleared by DNA evidence that's still sitting in prison. With 85 years, they gave me prior persistent and class X offender because I chose to go to trial. But I'm gonna tell you something. When they gave me the class X was for them to give me an extended period in the prison until I die. I have to serve 80% on each one of those sentences. 35 years for rape, 35 years for sodomy, and 15 years for tampering with a witness. The victim said, I called her and threatened her. I didn't call her. The telephone company say, where we used the telephone at down in the city jail, it couldn't have never came from that jail and going to her. I had witnesses that we was locked down at that time on a Wednesday. I could never call her and threaten her. I never called her. They gave me that sentence anyway. Why?
She said she recognized your voice.
Because she recognized me in the alley, right? That's what she said. I remember his voice from the alley, right? But if I wasn't in the alley and the DNA said that her rapist wasn't in that alley, not me, because I was not the rapist. I wasn't in that alley. And she recognized my voice from that alley. She could never recognize my voice from the alley when that DNA said it wasn't none of me.
Have you thought about the likelihood that you're going to die in prison?
Yes. Yes. Most definitely yes.
Do you think that's the most likely outcome?
I'm not afraid of dying. I ain't afraid of dying. Death is no enemy to man, you know? But if I gotta go, I gotta go. But if I got breath in my body to fight, St. Louis Circuit Attorney ought to stand up and put his feet down and demonstrate that which nobody else in the city of St. Louis, if that DNA evidence show you that it's not none of me, and hopefully maybe if Judge Catherine Perry is looking at me, looking at us when she reviewed this account of the news, that I'm entitled to have that evidence put in that computer to find out who that DNA belonged to, because that's the rapist. If she hadn't had sex for 2 weeks prior to the rape happening and didn't clean herself after the rape happened, that evidence belonged to that rapist. It don't belong to me based off of the medical report. Am I right? Truth is the only thing that changes not. Am I right? And I know you agree with me on that. It's number one.
My job is to ask questions.
I understand, man. I understand, man. I understand. But I'm telling you, man, if the prosecutor that we have now, Gabe Gore, if he take those blinders off and ask himself, am I guilty? Based off the identification? No. Fredrico ain't got no freckles on his face. Based off of the evidence that was withheld, that's not Fredrico's. I didn't get an opportunity to put forth an argument. The Missouri Court of Appeals hit me in the head. Every time I filed anything in the Missouri Court of Appeals to get them to overturn any of the issues that they have, they never did it. I'm stuck in prison. I'm doing somebody else's time while the rapist is running around in society right now. Especially if the person that is hooked up in this rape case, whose DNA is in this rape case, that she claims is Fredrico Lowe-Bey, it's not me. It's not me. My children had to grow up without me. All we want Gabe Gore to do, man, is stand up, man, and be a man and show them people, man, that this is what's really need to happen.
Does the fact that they got Chris Dunn's case over the finish line give you any, is there any hope because of that?
It should. It should. Chris Dunn was a good guy. I remember when he came down. to Potosi. When he first walked through the door. We gave him the ins and outs and the do's and the don'ts. And I'm proud of him. I'm proud of him for standing up, being the young man that he is, man, and he was able to overcome a lot of the hardships as well. But Gabe Gore, you got to stand up. You got to stand up, Gabe.
So your quest for innocence, it started right after you got convicted. You made a statement to the judge, quite a long statement, about you saying why you thought you were, why you were innocent. Do you think that making that statement, and as long as you went on, negatively impacted your sentence? Because you got the maximum sentence possible under the law.
Probably. But sometimes you have to be a man, man, and you have to stand up for yourself, man. You got to tell the people, man, what they need to hear, man. You know, not what they want to hear, but you have to tell the people what they need to hear. I'm innocent, man. I'd never rape a woman. I got 6 daughters, man. I wouldn't wish that on there, one of them. You know, I'd never rape a woman.
And in that statement, you had said, I believe you had said that she had to be lying about the rape because of X, Y, and Z, and you kind of, you know, had said that. But then now when you talk to me all these years later, you say you don't doubt that she was raped, but that, you know, it wasn't you. So tell me what kind of changed your mind on thinking that she had lied about the incident happened, or that, and then now you believe that it did happen?
I believe that it did happen. I believe it did happen. And they wasn't concerned about solving that rape. And I'm gonna tell you another thing. I feel sorry for her. She dead. She died. I feel sorry for her because what they took her through, man, that's sad, man. And like I told you on the phone, man, I wholeheartedly believe, man, that her child, she was 7
months pregnant.
Pregnant when this rape happened to her. I wouldn't wish this on there one of my children, man. You know, and whatever it is that I get out of this, when I get out and I sue these people, man, I would like to establish, man, some type of fund for her son. I would like to establish some type of give back to her son. You know why? Because they took her mother through that. They took his mother through that, man. And that's hurting, man. That's hurting to me as a Muslim, as a Muslim here in the United States of America, man, that we don't even tolerate that, man. That's against my morals and my principles to rape anybody. And I know she probably was forced into doing this. That's why I said that I believe in my whole heart, man, that she was raped, man. But it wasn't by me. And I believe somebody was in her ear telling her that was Fredrico. It couldn't have been Fredrico. And this medical report, I keep going back to this medical report. We cannot resolve this issue because the medical report says she hadn't had sex for 2 weeks prior to the rape happening. Why do you think they hid that?
Do you think you've proved at this point that you were framed for a crime that you didn't commit?
I don't know. But I sure hope Judge Catherine Perry is looking at this interview, because if she is, she would know that once we put that evidence in the YSTR DNA database, we would come up with the actual rapist. Because if the victim hadn't had sex for 2 weeks prior to the rape happening and she hadn't cleaned herself, that sperm belonged to that rapist. And I ain't the rapist. I'm just in jail for being the rapist. You know what I'm saying? I'm just incarcerated, man. I'm not the rapist.
You ever thought about giving up? After all these years,
I ain't never thought about giving up.
You have went through every single legal remedy that is available to you under Missouri and United States law. And you've been denied at every turn.
I've been denied every turn. But now I'm where Mr. Gore at. Maybe Mr. Gore can give me that benefit of the doubt that I need. Because guess what? At the end of the day, he ain't gonna sleep well. He's not gonna sleep well. The reason why I say he's not gonna sleep well is because I'm a believer. I believe.
You still have hope?
I believe. I believe in Allah. Allah is my greatest. That's my greatest hope. You have to have faith in her.
Do you feel like being in prison has strengthened your faith?
Being in prison has really strengthened my faith. Being in prison, it has given me the ability, man, to cope. It has given me the ability, man, to see things that other people don't see. It has given me the ability, man, to achieve. I done achieved some things, man, I ain't never think I'd achieve, man, because I was stuck in that mindset of being a drug dealer, of being the fanciest guy in the city with the fanciest car. But now that I see things in a different light, the organization that we have in prison trying to help the young guys that's here in this prison system, going to the Goji program to enlighten guys about how to change the thoughts that they have, being an institutional peer support service worker. I work for the people in prison. When I get out of prison, because I'm getting out. You mark my word, I'm telling you, I'm getting out. I'm gonna get out. And when I get out, I would like to continue to work with the guys that's in prison, because the guys in prison are worth it. All these guys worth it. Now you got guys that do things they ain't got no business doing, and I ain't gonna be your savior. I ain't gonna be your guide, but guess what? I'm gonna help you if I can help you. That's my motto. And being a true leader in the Moore Science Temple of America, we taught we must uplift fallen humanity no matter where. It could be in the lowest of low, it could be in the highest of high. We have to continue to teach.
You think people will believe you?
I don't know. That's one thing about me, man. I don't know what people gonna believe. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, people can believe in you one day and the next day not believe in you. But you have to believe in yourself. And that's what I do. I believe in myself.
If you did get out, what's like something you've wanted to be able to do these last 37 years that you couldn't?
I would like to go take my bar exam. I like to go take my bar exam. I'm just that tough. I like to do the law.
You've been a jailhouse lawyer.
I'm one of the greatest jailhouse lawyers they got here. I'm one of the great. Everybody come to me.
Take pride in that.
I take pride in it. To know that you're giving something back to individuals that need this, that's my cue.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that I haven't brought up that you think you'd want to say on camera?
No, man, I appreciate everything you've done for me. I'd like to give all honors, man, to Bobby for reaching out to you for me. And I needed your help, man. You came through for me, you know. And I'd just like to thank you and Channel 4 News, man, for being there for me, being able to air my differences with the St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office.
Well, I don't know what's going to happen when we publish it.
Right.
What do you think might happen?
Whatever happened, man. Hey, man. I believe that we're gonna make some changes.
Did you rape in 1988?
No, sir.
Were you one of the other two men that were
No,
there?
sir. I wasn't there.
You had nothing to do with it?
No, sir.
Wasn't there?
No, sir.
Didn't call her on June 1st?
No, sir.